Punctual in that, and I know the rest of our board will be present here in just a minute. We do have a quorum. But I want to call this meeting of the January 23rd meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to session. And in that, I would like to also remind the Board of Commissioners and be advised hereby the duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of such conflict, and further are instructed to refrain participating in any matter coming before this Board of Commissioners with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of such conflict. And to quote somebody that I've grown to admire, if it stinks, don't eat it. At this point, I'd like to ask, please, Commissioner Williams, if you could do the invocation for us, and ask Ms. Connie Orr if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand?
Merciful and gracious God, we bow to you this evening, Lord. We just ask you, Lord, to be with the people, Lord, as the cold weather comes through and the ones that's got the flu and all the stuff in the county, Lord. And we just ask you, Lord, that you be with us during this meeting, Lord, that we do the right thing for the county and for all the people, not just a certain group. Lord, we want to do your will, Lord, and we just ask you, Lord, to watch over the ones that happen to travel on these icy roads. Lord, that they'd be safe. Our sheriff's department, every ambulance service, Lord, that has to go out and help people, Lord, and we just ask you to be with them, Lord, and thank you for everything. And again, be with us during this meeting in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This time, I'd ask a motion for approval of the agenda. We have a motion.
If I may, we're going to...
Yeah, I was going to do the discussion. Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Okay, at this time, discussion, I have a few changes as well.
Like to be in closed session for several hours.
Okay. Commissioner Williams would be in closed session. And also with the board's permission, I believe I do have a clue. I would like to ask if we could, in fact, take the action item dealing with the vote on the transfer station purchase. If we can move that to the top of the list on the action items. Can we move that one to number 1? And also, Ms. Clerk, with this, item number 7 has already been dealt with during our work session. ENR, the board met as ENR at that time and heard Mr. Reed Miller's tax appeal, and he was told about notification within 30 days of the decision of that board. So we'll go ahead and read number 7. That's the pleasure.
Do you want to make a decision on that, or do you want to stay? That was your choice today.
I don't want to make a decision today.
You want to study that a little bit more before we make a decision on that? Yeah, we'll have to do that and depend on our months to be able to do that for us. Okay, Ms. Clerk, did you have some other changes?
Did you want, that should be, Teresa Garland had requested there was a little change. I think they were at a great meeting, and if I may be allowed to call her on the telephone and let her come down, she would leave that meeting to come down and speak with us.
Even if we have to go to that meeting for a short period.
If that is okay.
The chairman said, let's move the sheriff up and these boys next couple of need to get back out. Let's move them to first.
Okay, where do you want to place it on the agenda, Mr. Williams?
25 and 6.
Between 5 and 6, can we move from the sheriff?
That might go on.
Okay, can we move item number 8 between 5 and 6? Is that good? Okay. That'll help with the sheriff's schedule. Okay. Is there any other changes, Ms. Clerk, members? All right, with that, we have a motion and a second, and with those changes to all in favor? All opposed? All right, that stands at that. Okay, we'll go to the sheriff. Ms. Clerk? Please make sure that I get this right. Please. All right, at this moment, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular workshop meeting, minutes for December 16th, special meeting January 6th, which was recessed due to weather, and then the special meeting of January the 13th.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All right, any discussion or comment? All approved, signify with the hand. All opposed, like sign. Okay, with that, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and recognize the sheriff. We have on the agenda here Sheriff Mickey Anderson, Jerry Crisp, and Annette Carver. Welcome, y'all. The floor is yours.
We appreciate the opportunity to be here and get some things clarified. We apologize for not being here last week, but we had a lot going on. We had 23 arrests and possibly another 20 for this forthcoming investigation. There have been some discrepancies about some of the things in our budget, the credit card and such. One bill concerning the credit card, the undercover officer, which is a city drug here in the yellow shirt, was driving a Toyota Tundra that we had seized and was working for the sheriff's department last year. Keith did some work on it, changed all got some things on it. Had it hazel and the water pump and the brakes went out on it. So he paid for it himself. And when we came back to get him reimbursed, that was denied. So Raymond told me to take the credit card to the bank and get a tax advance and pay him and bring the receipts, and that's what we did on that.
All right, I'd like to be first on the board to congratulate you all on the investigation and what you've done with the arrests so far. I just hope and pray the court system sees you honest.
I do too, that's our...
Okay, Mickey, I'll tell you, one of the things that I would really like to do, and I know that it's been crazy with weather and everything else, and one thing added to another, you know, that somehow or the other there's great animosity between this board and your office. I think we've got a great working relationship.
I think so too. Never
And I
have our
refuse.
rules anybody here.
Absolutely, and I absolutely refuse as a member of this board to somehow or the other go and diss the sheriff's department. You guys are doing a job, and you guys do things that I would never even want to grow up to do. And don't take that the wrong way. You guys put your lives on the line every day. And Mickey, with your permission and permission of the board, I'd like to clarify something just for me, all right? And the board, if you don't agree with this, you stop me. But I want us to understand that the Graham County Board of Commissioners respects you and your office, and you as an elected official. You are an elected official, just like the clerk of the court, just like you know, the Register of Deeds and the people sitting here before you. We're all elected officials. And we're going to respect that. And we're going to do that because that's just the way it is. The responsibility of the Board of Commissioners is to fund and help you to operate your office. And we try to do that as best as we possibly can. And in that, each fiscal year, you submit a budget, and that budget is approved by a budget ordinance. And we live by that. The Board of Commissioners of the State of North Carolina does not hire or fire any members of the Sheriff's Office. They are at-will employees under the Sheriff, and rightly so. And I understand the reasons why. Employees of the Sheriff's Department are county employees and are part of the county's pay plan, personnel plan, and benefits plan. When an employee separates from the Sheriff's Office, the county pays the unemployment benefits of that employee and does not come out of the Sheriff's Department budget. All counties in the state of North Carolina are to operate under the auspices of the Budget and Fiscal Control Act. All departments of county government are to comply with Chapter 159 of the General Statutes of North Carolina. The county finance officer is bound by law to comply by the requirements of 159. And this is the one that scared the socks off me when we met. To refuse to comply with Chapter 159 has consequences under law, which includes and is not limited to a misdemeanor charge, and you can also be removed from office. County boards of commissioners have direct responsibility for fiscal activities and accountability. The Graham County Board of Commissioners will comply with state and federal law as each member has sworn to uphold. All of us sitting here on this board have sworn to uphold those laws. It is the desire of this board, and listen to me, this is the desire of this board to assist in every service department in Graham County to provide the best services to the taxpaying citizens of Graham County. The revenues the county has to operate which comes directly from the citizens of this county, and every employee of this county should never forget this fact. This board takes this fact to heart when having to make decisions, all decisions. This board's intent, and this is it, for meeting with members of the Graham County Sheriff's Department is to offer assistance where needed and to communicate clearly regarding fiscal matters that stand to impact not only that department, but the county budget as a whole. Now, having said that, I hope I said it the right way, Nikki. I really do. And what we're trying to clarify in this, and this is me and this board, is to try and clarify the issue that came up with regard to that of a pre-audit of any type of expenditures that are done. And I didn't realize how serious it was until I started doing my homework with regard to what that is. And I want to grant you, I understand that if you have an officer that's somewhere downstate and the car breaks down, you know, he's going to have the wherewithal and way to do that. This board and this staff is committed to taking care of those folks that work in law enforcement for Graham County. It will be taken care of. I've heard arguments about, well, what if we need to go down to A4 and buy batteries? Get a requisition, do the pre-audit, and buy you a box of batteries. Whatever it may be. I don't want to get into any of the rest of that, but what I would like to do is to clarify that everybody has to live under that Chapter 159. And I don't want to finish my term being guilty of a misdemeanor. I don't want to finish my term somehow or the other finding myself losing my position because of non-compliance to Chapter 159. So with that, Vicki, that's where I stand, you know, with this. And we want to have the best working relationship. And I know that I've had opportunity to talk with you and your staff, Commissioner Orr and myself did, with regard about the function between the finance officer and your staff at the sheriff's office. We need to make every effort to make sure that that avenue is open and everybody's on the same page with regard to that. I would like to recommend to this board and to the Sheriff's Department that if we have any questions or inquiry, that we might be able to present them to you as the head of this department in a letter. And that's just putting it all out right there, because we want to stand here all night and bicker back and forth about this, that, or the other. But if it is agreeable with you and this board, that if we have any concerns, that we might be able to present those to you in writing. And that way, there's that one avenue. And I want to remind everybody hearing that that letter is a public record. It's nothing done under the table, period. That's a public record. And should the sheriff see and he's able to respond to our questions without jeopardizing anything that goes with his department, that also would be public record. So having said that, Nikki, I hope that it's coming across that we're not against you, we're for you. Okay. And we always have been and always will be. But the thing that concerns me, you know, is that we all have to play together in this, or somehow or the other, the county's going to find itself in a liability. Not just in your department, but it's in every department in this government. And I'll tell you, I didn't know how much at risk I am personally with regard to my decisions made on this board and with regard to that fiscal and responsibility. The finance officer has reached out, you've reached out, your chief deputy's reached out, your staff has reached out. And unless we can go and come to ourselves and get to a place where we can communicate, that we're going to find all the things of rumor, we're going to find all the things that are out there except for the truth not being addressed. So Mickey, I've known you for 3.5 years. I've worked with you almost 3.5. And I pray and I hope that this board will continue to have a working relationship with you. And if we have questions, we're going to write them down. Okay. Is that acceptable to you, sir? Yes, sir. All right. I know you have other folks with you. Do you want to have them to present anything tonight?
Yeah, Jerry was coming up next for Native one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Good evening. I want to thank the board for taking the time to hear our concerns. I was asked here to come this evening to help answer any questions about anything I have knowledge of to do with the budget. I'm very familiar with Chapter 159. It's actually subsection 7 through 39. And if you'll read those, it talks about the budget ordinance. The budget ordinance is the budget that is passed for each department. In that, it says the finance officer and the board of commissioners, if there's a budget ordinance, if there's money already been appropriated for this, then after they they review it, which that's what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to review, keep accountability and all that for it. Then it says that any bills or invoices should be paid. And that, in the past year, we've run into some problems, and we've discussed this at different times. I've discussed it with the finance office and the manager's office. And it ain't that anybody disagrees with the statutes. It's that we've got to come to an agreement to actually go with the statutes, not just chapter 159, but the other state and federal statutes that apply, and make this run smooth, because we want to get along. We don't want to fuss and fight. Don't want to have any problems. So if y'all have any questions about specifics or particulars, I'm here to answer.
Okay. Well, Jerry, I hope the board's approved that, but we're going to have some questions and be able to address those to you in writing, and maybe to address some of those. But one of the guiding things that I've always seen is the issue of pre-audit, that you have, before spending, you have to do pre-audit, and that's part of the bill. And you understand that, and you apparently know a lot more about it than I do. And but the point that I find myself looking out for liability is the fact that we can't walk in with a bill and hand it into the finance officer and say, well, here, we need you to pay this, and then not knowing if, you know, but the law says you have to have a certificate of pre-audit. I mean, that's the law. And I understand where you're coming from. The flexibility that you have within an approved budget.
Right.
You know, and in the paper, I noticed that it said that it was just a $9,000 deficit, you know, and how you come to that is the bottom line. If you go line by line, you're going to have to shift some money around.
See, that's some of the things that we've been having trouble to get is when we've asked for invoices, when things ain't matching up, bills that get paid on a monthly basis at A4. Receipts ain't matching up with what's getting paid out. We've asked for those invoices so we can verify, break it down, and see exactly what it is we're paying for, and see if it's not matching, if it's on our end, and it's our fault. I'll be the first one to stand up there and tell you it's our fault. We can't get it.
May I address that?
Yes.
You know, our door is always open, and unfortunately, there's 2 of us and 25 departments. And what we have always been our policy, if you have a request, you're welcome to come to our office, and if you've got the check numbers or whatever, you can come at any point and pull those checks. And we're happy. We can help as much as we're able, but we can't, you know, if we're busy doing payroll or what have you, then we may not have time at that point. But our staff can come up at any time. All the books are wide open. And so if you've got a list or whatever, we're happy to you know, whoever wants to come up can pull those and make whatever copies. And then if you need to, you know, question anything, then we'll sit down with you as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
I know
we've always said that.
We started out asking verbally, then by phone, and then by email, so
Right.
we'd have.
But, you know, again,
Ms. Carter has
there's
all
2
the
of
records
us.
of it.
So anybody's welcome.
Right.
Any citizen,
I
any
understand.
person from any department can come in and pull whatever they need at any point.
I understand being busy.
Right.
Trust me. I
So
know.
we're glad. I mean, I have a pure open door policy.
Right. But like, sometimes, I'll just use an example, we put in a purchase order after checking the budget, seeing that we had $13,000, put in a budget request for about $1,700 worth of equipment to come out of department supplies, which we had money in. It got denied initially because you said that was over your approval. And it's supposed to got put on the agenda for the commissioners to see and approve, but which was like a month later. Well, for whatever the reason was, the commissioners didn't take it up that next month, so it was another month we had to wait before we could even order the equipment. It's stuff like that that we've got to be able to try to fix.
But that is the point about the spending limit. that was a decision on the part of the board. And, you know, if there's something that we can do to help that, then that's what we need to look to. We sure do.
Forest Service co-op money, we ain't seen it in at least a couple of years. Deputy finance officer, last year told one of the drug investigators that it went in the county's general fund. We don't know. We can't see any kind of paper trail or anything to show where that money went to. And if we try to use that money to help with the extras that come up in undercover drug operations, equipment purchases, right now, we've bought 3 or 4 game cameras used for surveillance cameras. Because we're getting a lot of property crimes, gas thefts and stuff. We've set them cameras up. They don't have the quality. We can see a suspect. Can't tell who he is. We just see a picture of him. We'd like to use that money to help buy some good quality surveillance cameras. So we can try to catch some of these thieves.
Well, I can
The
understand.
Forest Service money is billed by your department, and that is reimbursement, and there is a separate line item in revenues where that money flows into. And so basically, because it's a reimbursement, that money is spent before you actually get the money in. It is part of your general budget, and it goes in toward your budget.
Or does it go to our budget?
Well, it doesn't go against your expenditures because we're not allowed, that's another statutory thing, we're not allowed to offset expenditures with revenue on the
So,
books. But there again, you have a line item where those monies are deposited, that helps to defray part of the cost because it's actually a reimbursement of your out-of-pocket cost to do your patrolling of the Forest Service. The drug.
I'm gonna show up on our budget spreadsheet.
It's not gonna show on the expenditure side. It'll show when you run, if we run your revenue, it'll show on your revenue side. Okay?
But then,
But that-
where does it show for its expense?
Well, it depends if you're reimbursing fuel, it's gonna be part of the overall fuel expense for each fund. If you're using, officer support.
It's supplanting the fuel budget.
Well, it's a reimbursement of what it's costing the department. If you've got officers dedicated to patrolling and you're allocating, when you're doing your billing, the cost, we're posting all of their payroll into your 5102 account.
So the Forest Service says we can't do that.
Well, that's interesting because if it's a reimbursement of your cost, I don't know how they can say you're supplanting your own budget. So that's something that maybe we need to have some discussion about with the Forest Service because that's a reimbursement. I mean, I think Ms. Hoover does that on a monthly basis.
Even got to the point they're threatening to cancel it.
I mean, because what else is it supposed to be used for?
It's supposed to be used for law enforcement purposes, equipment purchases and
Okay.
stuff like that. That's
Because
what they're telling us.
Okay, so what we need to do is have some discussion about that with Forest Service and with your department, because our understanding is that it was a reimbursement of the cost of patrolling their area. So we need to look at that agreement again and see what needs to be dealt with from a managerial side.
Right. That's fine, because
yeah.
we've had this discussion.
Right, now the
like,
drug.
Since last spring.
The drug, I think you'll recall back in the spring, I think we fixed a spreadsheet that showed the amount of North Carolina drug allotment that has been provided or has been, we've received back.
We spoke back in August about it, and you said that we had about $10,000
And
that
that-
we paid in.
Right,
But we don't know when these payments come. And when I look at the spreadsheet, it says only $1,500 when this spreadsheet.
has been expended.
I think what it said, it says budgeted.
Budgeted. Well, and that's, I mean, we basically just estimated based on what the department has spent in past years to say, and on the average, that amount had been spent. But that money is maintained in a separate account, separate bank account, first of all, which technically under the statute, local government commission says I don't have to have a one bank account. I don't like doing business like that. I want to be able to say, if somebody walks in off the street and says how much drug money's in that account, I can say, here's the bank account. And that money is also restricted so that no money spent out of it is used to supplant your budget, which we had that discussion in the spring as well. So the only way I'm going to make an expenditure out of that account is if Sheriff Anderson or yourself says, we want to make this expenditure and we want this to be taken out of the drug account or the drug account, period. So no expenditure that's a normal operating expenditure is ever going to come out of that. Now let's say if your budget's at $1,500 for this budget, but you guys look at it and you say you've got $10,000 in the account, and you're looking and you need to purchase a $5,000 piece of equipment, then what I will do is make that request to the Board of Commissioners, because once again, I'm still under the $1,000 threshold, but I'm also going to make a budget amendment in your budget to bump that expenditure line item up.
That's like our actual budgeted drug account money went last year from 15,000 to 18,000, and that's separate apart from this drug excise tax money that comes in.
And I think that was based on, again, you know, we tried when we were doing the budget not to change that amount from what the department requested. So again, if you feel like that isn't sufficient, especially now that you're doing a whole lot of work with making arrests and these undercover operations, then that's where we need to sit down from a managerial standpoint and say, we thought it was going to be 8, but it's really going to be more like 15. We need to make a budget.
And of course, that's what it's up to the commissioners. They have to review not just our budget, but all of them when they're setting these budgets at the beginning of the fiscal year. And of course, we requested 15,000, but it got cut to 8, which that's the way it works. But this drug excise tax money is on top of that.
Exactly.
And what we seem to be having some issue with sometimes is we'll look, that's just like when me and you had the discussion back in the fall that wanted to order that equipment and pay for it out of department supplies line item because we had the money. Well, you wanted us to pay for it out of the drug account money. Well, we knew we had this undercover operation coming up, so I couldn't sit there on the phone and tell you, hey, we're fixing to do this undercover thing. And I said, no, we don't want to pay for it out of our drug account. We want to pay for it out of the budget, what's actually budgeted to us. And that's where there seemed to be some conflict because we wanted us to pay for it out of the other.
There was no conflict on my part. It was just it wasn't me. And if you took it that way, I apologize. But my question was, I thought, okay, this appears to be something we could take out of the drug account. Do you want to do it that way? You told me no. That was the end of it, as far as I'm concerned. If you tell me no, I don't need to know why. I don't want to know why. The question in my mind was, is there a way that can help them stretch their budget if this is something that they would, that would rather do?
Because I look at our expenditures and stuff and see, we have a lot of line items that we can shut down at any time. And that we have actual control of. Of course, salary and overtime stuff, we don't have a lot of control over. We try to watch it best we can. But like where a lot we can't dictate that. And of course, it's under federal operations, steps up increase in overtime. That stuff we try our best to watch, but we can't control it. But some line items like office supply, department supplies, I mean, if we get in a pinch with that, I can shut her down. But we're right here now in the third quarter, and several of these line items we still have budget money there. And like what was in the paper, we're at 46% of spending when we should be at 43%. Well, we can adjust those. If we got a call or an email that said, hey, you're at 46%, you should be at 43%. We could have had a discussion there about how to, I apologize. We could have had the discussion about, well, let's look at some line items that we can shut down. Maybe not have no expenditures at all out of it for a month. So they have to get us back in line. First we heard about it, we're ready to pay it. So again, that goes back to the communication, I think, of Mr. Edwards.
Well, and
We're willing to do.
you know, I've made this comment more than once, that I have to micromanage the entire budget. And Mr. Cable here does as well. He's technically the budget officer. And what I have laid out to every department is that as far as the overall budget is concerned, if I look at any department and I see that there may be what I call running a little hot, then I begin looking at the line items just to see if there's an area where we can help the department. Like
Again, call us.
My concern is at the end of the day that if a department has a reasonable budget, that they're within the total. And as I've related many times, you know, my door's open, but at the same time, I don't want to be perceived as, okay, you know, you're looking at this line item and forgetting everything else, you know. Because I feel like the way we have our budget set up, by being on a departmental level, we're able to give the department some level of discretion to manage how it works between the lines. So as you're saying, and I think we're talking the same language, we just got to get on the same page, that it's not an adversarial thing.
I agree.
That I take, just as you guys take your job very seriously, and I am so glad you do. I take my job very seriously as well. And just as you guys take an oath of office, I likewise took an oath that I'm going to perform my duties in conjunction with the laws of the state and the federal government. I want to be seen more as a resource and not a punitive person. And if I mention to anybody that line item is looking a little rough, it's to help the department adjust.
Right. We need to know that.
Exactly.
Like I said, there's line items that we can control.
Exactly.
And we want to live within our budget because we know the statute's very clear. If we run out of money, these commissioners don't have to do no budget and then give us any more. They can say, hey, Sheriff, that's what you got and that's what you're going to live with. And we're stuck with that.
You know,
We want to stay within our budget to the best of our ability.
and I want to address the 159 because I've had this conversation many times with many employees, not just the sheriff's department, but other departments. This statute is basically a control. You know, it has allowed the state of North Carolina to stay solvent. It's stay solvent in a terrible period of economic collapse, where other states and local governments went bankrupt or came close to it. But at the same time, I'm a realist too. And I understand that when these guys are out and about, things are going to come up and things are going to happen. And so, I spoke with Ms. Carter back here last week, what we've tried to put in place is for those items that are absolutely recurring. You know, your fuel bill is absolutely recurring every month. That it's a given. It's going to be somewhere between $500 and $5,500 a month, the best you guys can do. And so what we tried to do when we went and did the budget was leave enough space for those months when it goes wacky out of control for whatever reason. We have a blanket PO in place. So you're already pre-audited for your fuel. We know that at best that the county's going to spend probably, not just the sheriff's department, but the county as a whole is going to spend about $1,500 a month at A4. Because we know that if they're out and about and they need something, and it's in the weekend, and they got to have it, I got to cover them.
Right.
And that's what the statute's for, is to cover them, to cover you, to cover me from liability. Because the problem is in the environment we're living in today, it's not the environment we had even 5 years ago, is that there are people, there are groups who want to scrutinize every move that government makes.
Absolutely.
There's a perception that government is inefficient and that it's corrupt and they're just wasting our money. And so the reason that I have to be strict is so that I can protect the employees of Graham County from liability,
We don't have any problem with that.
personal liability.
We just, the biggest thing that we need to do, and it's to help us live within the budget, is we need to be able to see this. We need to be able to see what we've got in a line item. Because I don't want to send and request a PO for something that's $2,000-3,000, and we've only got 500 in that line.
Right. Now, the new system, we're head and shoulders above and beyond where we were a year ago.
Right.
Where we were 6 months ago. Because the new system's been on board for 6 months right now, a little over 6 months. We just went live with payroll in-house, so that as soon as the payroll is cut, within a few days, we're able to update it and update your budget. Where we were a year ago, if one of the guys came in and said, Becky, I need to buy such and such, do we have it in our budget? I'd have to say, let me get back to you in about 2 or 3 hours. So, you know, if there's things that we need to do in the system to help you guys get more information, I'm right here to help you. Okay? And I think that the system will give you every level of detail you need. It's just a matter of us working together to tweak it for your department or whatever the department is, so that you guys can run it in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've not seen whether or not there's any drug excise tax payments been made in since probably November.
Okay.
We
So
don't know.
what we need to do is, and this is something that's part of the involvement of the system, you know, the phase 1 was getting everybody where they knew where they were in their expenditures.
Right.
Phase 2 is what I'm working on right now, is pulling in every department's revenues into their user area to where they can, when they run a report, they can run revenues and expenditures. I wish I had 40 hours a day. I'd probably get where I need to be. But that is truly all in the pay. We had to get payroll in. We got it implemented last week. And then now is me pulling in the revenue side, and making sure that all the line items that concern you are in your area. So that's in the works,
Okay.
okay?
And
And that'll help you know
Always have,
where you're at with your revenue side,
all right,
okay?
thank you.
I'd like to make some comments, Jerry. I know I was probably here when they started the Forest Service. I don't know where you and hardly went to work yet for Sheriff Howell or not. But the understanding that I've had over the years that goes to the Sheriff's Department directly. And I disagree with the way it is now. The way that the Forest Service always explained it to me, and the other, I met Sheriff Howell, and then you, when you got on up there, and probably Mickey when his daddy was sheriff, was that was to be used for the Sheriff's Department to buy equipment. And
That's
the,
what we always use it for.
right, and one time we failed to do it, and they threatened to take it away from us. The officer that does the campgrounds also patrols from here to where he's going. Right, Mr. Sheriff? And he patrols from here to the Pope, from here to
It got changed this last year to where instead of it just being one officer doing it, all the officers are doing it and keeping up with their time when on Forest Service property.
right, okay. But it is meant for the Sheriff's Department, and I believe that, because I was probably one that was one of the first that was involved in that with Sheriff Howell. And it's went on for years, and I always thought it was in the Sheriff's Department, which I think it should be a line item in the Sheriff's Department budget for equipment, as the Forest Service says. And we need to meet with them, see what they say, because if we lose that, we sure can't afford to send deputies to patrol their property if they're not giving us that money. And we bought all kind of equipment. I believe one time we bought guns with that money for everybody. And I think that's where that should be. Now, that's my opinion. But I was one of the first ones, as I say, involved in it with the Forest Service. And we need to work back towards that, see what the Forest Service says now, and get that back in there. And I believe you gave me a concern one time that you thought that, is there ever department have a separate account at A4?
No, A4 will only, they used to allow more than one account, but this past year, this past fall, when they came under a new manager, they said that the county could only have one account. What I've instructed anybody to do is if they go to A4 and it has to do with specific supplies that are just for the Sheriff's Department, they are to sign off on it, Sheriff. If it's our maintenance person who has to maybe go and do an expenditure related to the building, I prefer that to go into public buildings for indirect cost reasons. And so they may tell me it's going for the Sheriff's Department, but we try to post it to public buildings, period.
If anybody besides the sheriff's officer or one of the ladies that work down there signs the paper down there, then that's all that should be took out of the Sheriff's Department.
Exactly.
Even though he's working on the building, and his signature would take care of public buildings.
Right. Which,
Okay.
because I mean, if, let's say he has to go to the A4 for light for the courthouse, to me, public buildings is public buildings. Because there again, I do better on my indirect cost plan for more costs to go into public buildings versus the sheriff's department.
Right.
But if one of the guys goes and they have to buy a particular item that relates to their job, or I think back in the summer, they may have had, I think, an air conditioner or something for that upstairs area, that's gonna be for the sheriff's department. You know, that's equipment that they're gonna be using for the sheriff's, for their office or whatnot.
Oh, upstairs.
Yeah,
in the hall.
upstairs in the
Yeah, it's when
office.
the temperature was getting up
Yeah.
around 100 or better.
But that applies to any
upstairs.
department. If, like, the health department had to go purchase a ceramic heater last week for the dental clinic because the water pipes kept freezing the best they could do, that's a health department expenditure. But if they, you know, if our maintenance person has to buy filters for the health department, for the HVAC system, it's going to be a public building expenditure. So we try to build the budget to where we maximize our indirects
But
as much as we can.
there's lots of times that they need stuff that they can't wait 2 or 3 days.
Exactly. And so
When they
that's,
give, if they do give you a purchase order, then it needs to be done. If they say, we've got to have it today, then it needs to be done immediately.
but if it goes over my spending limit, you know, when I authorize, then I gotta,
You need to call Kim and she needs to poll those.
and we have.
And
So-
because we don't, I mean, the way things is going right now, and the work that they're in right now, they may need something on a weekend, and
We take care of that. I mean, if there's an emergency that comes up, we've made it very, very clear, and I hope all you guys know, if there's an emergency that comes up, you can call us. You can get a pre-authorization. None of the issues that we're dealing here with today is any reflection on anything other than whenever there are expenditures occur and we don't have any knowledge prior to that expenditure happening, that's whenever General Statute 159 is called into play.
Right.
It has nothing to do with us allocating monies in your budget for the things that you need. The Forest Service revenues are in your budget as a revenue coming in for the Sheriff's Department. It may help in making payments on new cars, or it may help in supplies, it may help in flashlights, wherever it may be allocated. But those monies are coming in, and it's a generation by the Sheriff's Department from the Forest Service. That is your money, and it is being used solely for your department. The issue that we find ourselves with here, we want to make sure that everyone understands is that you're able to operate within your line item. Everyone here agrees, and everyone recognizes that. We have to make sure, whether it's with the Sheriff's Department or any other department, sanitation, any department, if there's expenditures made, there has to be a pre-audit done on that. And it has to go through finance administration.
I disagree.
Notify us prior to, that way we can settle.
Every penny that I've requested out of the budget has been a request for a purchase order.
Okay,
And,
but that has to be across the board.
well,
And so-
and again, I can't speak for the sheriff. I'm speaking for my part of it and the stuff that I deal with as far as the budget goes. I don't really know nothing about the travel. I thought it was a travel credit card for booking rooms and buying meals when somebody was in school.
that was the purpose.
That was the purpose of that.
But, you know, I don't know, I can't address that, that's some of the questions you need to ask the sheriff. But the issues I've spoken here about tonight has been about budget, requesting for purchase orders, and all that. And, one of the things she explained was that this revenue money's coming in is not on the system that we can access or see. And right now is the first I'm hearing that. So-
Well, I wish I could be better at communicating, I honestly do, but a lot of times I try my best to send out memos or whatever. But well, you deal with it too, it's the nature of the work, the workload. sometimes it's either communicate, or get more time.
Right.
And that's not where I want to be, okay? I'd rather have plenty of time to communicate.
Right. I'd rather not have to be bothering you and calling you every day or two,
Right.
email.
But I don't mind it. I mean, it's like Larry called me today for EMS. We got a heater out in the bay. I need to call so-and-so. Not sure how much it's gonna be at this point, but I'm going ahead and putting a PO in so you know it's coming, and I'll call you as soon as they get finished, and we can get an estimate. If it goes over your limit, then you can communicate with the board of commissioners.
That's all fine.
Yeah,
But
you know.
back in the spring, I said, right over there somewhere, when we did the budget proposal, brought the same issue up about the, being able to see the revenue as it comes in on the drug excise tax and also on the Forest Service co-op. And we had this pretty much the same conversation then, and we were told, yeah, we're gonna get that, it's gonna happen, you'll see your line item. No, when I met with Mr. Edwards and Mrs. Older, and on a separate occasion met with Mr. Williams, same thing. I laid out there and I said, we need that line item, that when we pull this new system up, that we can see the revenue as it comes in, and out in the next block, the expenditure as we spend it out on stuff. And of course, that's with the request and approval. That's never been the issue. And I think each one that I've talked with and met with remembers this conversation since last spring. And we're still not able to see it, still don't get it. The last email I got on any payment for drug excise tax was a month ago, maybe a little longer, from Michelle. Never got one from her before, never one from her after. To see when this money gets paid in from the Department of Treasury, Revenue Service, and Raleigh. And that's what we're asking for.
And that's,
it's to
that can be
help
dealt
us
with.
live within our budget.
Right, and I don't, well, you probably were not at the meeting where I talked to the commissioners about the new system, where I stated it would be a year from you know what.
I believe
To
anytime
get-
I can.
Yeah,
So,
and you probably, I mean, I'm not saying you should have been there, but it takes a full year to morph the new system in. And I apologize if we're not fast and efficient enough.
That's no problem.
But anytime you want to know how much, until we get everything set up, and I'll assure you of one thing, you will be the top of the list. The
Okay.
revenue line items on the priority list. But anytime you have a question and you want to know, call me.
Okay.
And if I can't do it in 5 minutes, I'll tell you, it'll take me 2 hours, or I'll get back to you by tomorrow.
No problem.
I try to keep my word. But I guarantee you, as we, now that we have payroll morphed, we're into revenues now. My biggest concern was getting those expenditures dealt with, so that every department could see where they were. And I think we've done, I'm not bragging, but we've done a pretty darn good job getting this far in 6 months.
I'd like to say, and I appreciate it, and I want to be able to work with the sheriff's department. And I've always tried to, it don't make no difference what the politics is. I've always tried to work with the sheriff, his people. But sometimes you have to say no, and sometimes you can help them when they didn't really need help. But most of the time, we can help, and we appreciate you. And we'll do everything we can legally to help you.
I appreciate that. I want to thank the commission for taking the time to listen to us. Any other questions of me?
I believe some of these boys need codes too. You might requisition some of them.
We've got 37 people in jail right now, 29 out of the county. 60 every day.
Yeah, yeah, that's what
And
happens.
chews up a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's been, other thing, one of us in jail up here, he has to have a $400 oxygen tank.
Yeah.
Bill monthly. We have two in Swain County Jail, on this homicide charge. The county has had to spend over $100,000 for these two guys for a murder that occurred 5 years ago this coming April. And, you know, it's just hard to foresee things like that. You know?
I'll tell you, Sheriff Anderson, I've heard that a lot statewide, and one of the initiatives that came out of Graham County, as a matter of fact, Manager Cable worked a lot on this, about trying to offset costs, medical costs. But yeah, that's a good question, you know, because, you know, if we haven't filled up like that, here it goes. I wish we had a jail.
And if they're really sick, try to send them on the Raleighs. You know, if they have to have an operation or something, shoot them right on the Raleighs, so we don't have to be out.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see done was, is Mr. Cable, tell the other Mr. Cable to start looking for grants, for a jail. Every county surrounding us now has a new jail. Bryson's gonna be hurting when Cherokee opens up.
Yeah.
And they might get a little cheaper price up there, but we definitely need one here.
Well, it's not just $40 per person per day plus the man. It's also officer time, vehicle wiring, tires, gasoline.
It all adds up.
Yeah, I heard one of your jail officers the other night. He was out about all night and then all day too.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
you know, and really the overtime is really something that you can't say what it's gonna be.
Yeah, something like that.
Because
And
some
we
people-
promise, we're not trying to waste money. We're not just, you know, being frivolous with this money. We have
Some people
15
have right now, every one of these boys has to go work. And if they start something, they can't let somebody else, people don't understand that, they can't let somebody else just take it over. If they start something, they've got to finish it.
But we promise that we're not trying to be frivolous with this money. We had a $1,500 donation. We have actually bought about $1,200 worth of firewood, which we've been giving out to senior citizens, disabled veterans, and needy. We have $250 over to the Yuletide helpers. You know, so I mean, we try to give back too.
All right. Now, Ms. Carter, I believe you're next on back. Do you have anything?
If you can do the questions that you have for Mickey, because that's just what mine's pertaining to, is all of our POs that I've done and our backup for all of them. So when you do the questions for Mickey, I'll have a copy that Jens can have to look over of everything that we have purchased and had their PO for and what it's for and where it was going to.
Well, that's good. Appreciate that. Well, I'll tell you what, is there any other question or comment from the board? Folks of the Sheriff Department, we really do appreciate you. I see you out. Actually came through the gap trying to get back in Graham County one night. Somebody stopped me. Who was that? Somebody said, well, it's Mr. Edwards. I didn't know if he was going to let me in the county or not. That's okay. I really do appreciate everything that you do. And Sheriff, thank you very much. I'm glad we finally got this worked out before we can come together.
Do we need to turn the credit card in, or what do you want us to do with it?
Well, you have to ask the finance office and our clerk. Yeah.
Come see.
Thank you very much,
All right.
Sheriff. Appreciate it. All right, the next thing on the agenda, I'll try to move it forward. I'm going to go ahead and ask Ms. Garland, she'll go ahead and do our finance report. And then I see we have Teresa Garland. Did Teresa just came in?
She did, and I can call her to come back. She was one of the ones that I could call back.
Okay. I've got to be here for the finance presentation.
2 minutes. I'm gonna talk fast.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, I was just waiting on you to go.
I'm sorry, that was rude.
No. Okay, I think I put before you, before the work session, your monthly financial report. We closed the month of December with $5,670,000 in the general fund checking account. That's basically 5 months of expenditures. This time last year, we were at 5.1 million. And I went back and looked about 4 years ago, and we was about 1.5 million. So we've come a long way, but we're still, I know you guys get tired of hearing it, not quite where we need to be, but we're getting closer and closer. So I'm real pleased with that. If you want to look at page 3, our tax collections. Current year taxes for the month of December were $1,050,129. We got $85.32 in past due taxes. We also received, and this includes about $19,000 from the BTS. Tax collections for December were $39,800 in DMV. We are tracking about $327,000 ahead if you look at page 4. Of this time last year, DMV, we're tracking about $52,000 ahead of this time last year. Our tax collection rate is at 76.97%. This time last year, it was at 77.28. We're slightly behind, and the reason for that is because our levy is higher this year due to the tax rate increase. We have $1.262 million in current real property taxes that we're still due in December. We have had quite a few collections. Of course, the actual due date for property taxes was January 6th. So we should see another pretty good bump on that. And yes?
Can I ask you a question on that? How much back tax are we collecting?
Since July 1?
Yeah.
July 1, we were a little under $500,000 in back taxes, and we're now at $275,000. So we've done pretty good in those back.
What did we budget for that?
We were hoping to get about $300,000 in.
So we've done one over.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Thank you.
On page 5, our total revenues for the month of December were $1.58 million. Expenditures were $1.1 million. We paid the bond payment. So we always have a pretty high amount of expenditures for December for a surplus of $453,000.
School bond.
The school bond, yeah. And on page 6, right now our surplus is at $1.9 million. We're tracking behind. This time last year we had $2.3 million. But this time last year we were heavy into the transit facility, so our revenues appear for last year higher than they are looking this year because we're not getting those big drawdowns from that grant for that facility. Sales tax continues to be a disappointment this year. We received $113,801 in sales tax in January for the month of November collections. This time last year, we got $122,700. So we're about a little over $14,000 behind this time last year. I'm hoping that when we get the February allotment that's going to bump up a little bit, but I'm not being very optimistic there. I provided you a budget report, and one thing I did make some adjustments to it because I thought I want to go ahead and project out, including our debt service, but our ideal remaining percent countywide should be 46%. Now this is as of the 15th of January. We do have some departments that, when you look at their percentages, I've highlighted those in yellow. They seem to be running ahead of what the budget should be. But when I went in and analyzed each of these departments, most of these departments, for instance, like registered deeds appears to be running higher, but that's because they've had a lot more real estate activity going on, and they've had to pay out higher fees to the state of North Carolina, but that also means we got more revenues that's coming in as well. Overall, our budget for countywide We have 52% of our budget left, and as I said, where we should be right now is at 46. So right now, and that, once again, that does include taking into account all of the debt service we have to pay between now and June 30. Because I thought, you know, it's better to go ahead and include that in the expenditures, because we've already encumbered it, number one. And that way there's no false sense of security that we're floating on somebody else's money. So I was pleased with that. I have some budget amendments to bring to you.
Becky,
Yes.
can I ask one question? I know that you're familiar, Greg, you might want to jump in on this too, is that the situation with the bill money,
Yes.
I think that means about $257,000 for us. Have you heard anything in the grapevine or any other place with regard, because it was not on this bill? And
Yes,
I've been
sir.
hearing the farm bill.
The last indication that we got was, after speaking with Congressman Mark Meadows, he was assured by the Speaker of the House that HILT would be funded this year. They didn't really see any way around it. It would either be attached to the farm bill, which is a must sign, or a debt ceiling bill, which would be coming up in less than 60 days. There was an amendment proposed on the Senate floor to include HILT in the omnibus bill that would offset some other allocated funding to climate change, but I don't think that it actually got any traction within the Senate. So we're sort of at the mercy of waiting to see what's going to happen with the farm bill or a debt ceiling bill. Now,
I think they passed the debt ceiling bill, but I don't know if it's on the sign right now.
well, I didn't know that my understanding was the debt ceiling bill was coming up in a few months. The omnibus bill was what just got
I don't
passed.
think I heard them say that they passed
Okay.
the president.
I'm sorry, I'm just worried. You know, when it's
Yeah, we've been worried for a couple of weeks now, you know, in the office that.
because that has the direct impact on our ability to
Yes.
get the funding in schools.
Exactly.
And then another issue with that is too, is the impact aid. I don't know what the relationship between the impact aid monies and I know that they're separate and apart, but you know, if they can do that, then
Well, and there is a semi-direct relationship between impact aid and the secure rural schools.
Right.
And I was talking with the school finance officer the other day, and they're a little concerned that they're gonna lose part of their impact aid. And we kind of said tongue in cheek, the government giving them and they take it away, because there's like half of the acreage falls under one set of rules and the other half falls on the other side, the other set of rules. And there's a distinct possibility because of secure rural schools that they're gonna lose some impact aid.
Any idea how much?
Well, he's afraid that they're gonna lose about half of what they normally got in the last couple of years. You know, they've got like $1 billion impact aid. And so he's really worried, that they're gonna lose half of that. So that's, you know, it's very convoluted, but in looking at how the guidelines read and the statute reads, if we get timber money, it negatively impacts, or could impact aid. And I think they're looking at that.
Well, a wise woman that I know personally had said, as we were driving up I-40, if they refuse to pay that bill money, we'll just go ahead and have the tax folks to go ahead and assess the property and send them a tax bill.
Yeah.
And if they don't pay their tax bill, we're going to foreclose on them.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea myself.
It sounds like a crazy thing, doesn't it?
Well,
Really wise woman in that.
but you know, if they're gonna own property in this county, they need to pay it up, even
they
when
sure
money
do.
is.
And it's not a
Even if they pay the bill.
reauthorization, by the way. It's not a
Right.
reauthorization, it's the law.
Exactly. It was set, what, in the 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. I have some budget amendments. Budget amendment number 4 is to recognize the cost of the additional, I think you guys were polled about this, the additional paving on Fort Hill, increased capital outlay, public buildings, $9,500, and actually this money, because it affected transit, is being pulled out of the transit operating reserve. This is fund balance that we set aside every year when they have a surplus. We did get some good news right before we came that Duke Energy is going to give us $1,000 toward that. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's, I'll take it. Okay. The budget amendment number 5 is just to go ahead and recognize the county portion of the senior center. I think I'm overestimating, but I'm increasing that construction cost by $125,000. We've used up all the CDBG money. We've made those final requests. Now, as we begin to pay the final pay estimates, it'll come out of county dollar. That's a decision you guys made about a year ago for $125,000. Along the lines of CDBG, we are beginning to commence on the scattered site project for CDBG. That's a $220,000 grant. So budget amendment number 6 is just to recognize that grant and the expenditures related to that. Of course, under that scattered site, no county dollar is expended. Budget amendment number 7 is just to shift some dollars between line items and public buildings. I think back in November or December early, an HVAC system had to be replaced. So I'm recognizing additional $5,000 in capital outlay. We seem to be staying in good shape on the repairs, other repair sides and utilities, so I pulled money from those line items to fund that. Budget amendment number 8 is just to recognize the cost, and this is basically the direct costs of recycling. I'm estimating the total cost there for the year of about $12,500. We got $82.83 in the final portion on that recycling grant. We are estimating getting about $2,800 in recycling revenue for the year, and the balance will have to come out of the county coffers. And then budget amendment number 9 is to recognize a grant that the Extension Office got for 4-H from the Rural Center of $14,000. And what they're going to be using that for is some educational equipment for $14,000.
All right. All right. Anything else, Ms. Darling?
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Is there any questions or comments for Rebecca on the budget? All right. Let's go ahead, if we can, and address these on the budget amendment. I have a motion that we accept the budget amendments request for budget amendment 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as presented. We have a motion. We have a second. Any comment or question regarding these budget amendments? All approved, signify by hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, with this, we'll move along. I see that we have Teresa and two aldermen and mayor with us. Glad to see you folks. And we'll recognize Ms. Garland. Thank you for coming back and forth in cold weather.
Well, thanks for calling me. I appreciate that. I have 2 issues. The first is requests. As you know, I've taken a job as the events coordinator for the town planner, and we're hoping to do some classes in line dancing and I guess country dancing, anyway. And we wondered if the county would let us use the community building to do those free as an in-kind contribution for those events. We will help sponsor those, and we'll take in a few fees, but low fees, for the classes to help sponsor the classes.
See, what kind of time frame, day-wise and hour-wise?
I talked to Kim and to the other people who scheduled the facility, and this will be in the evening, and it looks as though Thursday is the best day. That it is
So we got
open.
that all worked out.
Yes, we worked all that out. It'll be Thursdays from February through the end of April.
All right.
So,
That sounds like a no-brainer. We want to go ahead and act on this now. We can do that. You keep up with the action items we're taking care of on that. All right, we have a motion that we go ahead and have an in-kind contribution of use of the facility here at the community building of a program that Carl has shared with us.
So move, Steve Hoover's.
Oh, you know, that's a good motion. You hear that? We have a motion, we have a second.
I just second.
All right, thank you very much. Any question or comment?
Kick him up, Steve.
All right, all approved, vote with hand, all opposed, like sign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The second item on the agenda is a different hat I'm wearing, and that is on the committee for the Heritage Festival. And this year, we of course, as in many years past, do not quite have enough funds to support the festival. At the end of last year, I brought to the board survey results about how much the festival brought into the community. I hope you remember that we said the festival probably brought into vendors and businesses about $200,000 at least for the community. So we are short about $2,000 or $3,000 for the festival this year, and that is without fireworks. And I would like to turn it over to the chair and to have all the aldermen. I know, he should know.
Good.
So we're here to request some funding, and the mayor and Jan are here as well to speak to that, right? Yes.
Now, what we're looking at this year, used to, the Heritage Festival was funded up to 12 years ago by Tribal Tourism, so, and I don't remember what the reason was that it quit. So 12 of us, we volunteered and started the Heritage Festival back. Well, it's down to 4 of us now. Everybody quit last year, so there's 4 of us now. We pay for money every year, and I know it's tight everywhere. But we're at the point this year, we're gonna have to turn our vendors back and tell them we ain't having it if we don't get the money. We've got all the money we can raise. We went out in the community 2 years ago, and I think we raised $16,000 for fireworks. But as hard as times are, we can't ask them any more for money. Heritage Festival. To me, I'd rather go to Murphy Beach on the 4th of July, but there's 200 some kids show up every year that don't get to go on vacation. That's why I do it.
And I would like to say the town is given $5,000. Travel and tourism gave $3,000. We have made about $2,000 that we think that the Heritage Festival Committee can contribute. So we need about at least $2,000 to match what the town gave. So, and I would like to request that
That's good.
Last year out of the crowd we had too, and a lot of people say we don't bring people in. We had 850 folks that weren't from the county that showed up last year. The year before was a lot better. I think we had 2,200 that weren't here, that weren't from this county. Just in motels last year, we had 500 folks staying in the county that rented rooms somewhere. And I think 350 that stayed with other family members. We've probably got 150 calls now to see if we're going to do it this year.
Well,
Becky, where is it?
I would rather, whether anybody comes or not, our people deserve something.
Yeah, it's a vacation for kids that can't go on vacations, and that
If they watch them out there with the greasy pig and stuff,
it's worth it.
in the miles they have. And if Vince can get all the wildlife, I believe that we can get permission for a coon too.
We have a problem with that right now.
Yes, we
We've
are.
got a club that might be able to do it. We've got a guy that might be able to do it. He holds a license to do it.
Big wooden soda.
We got 2 of those.
Well, let me just say that they will, I'll let nobody from another county come that has their license, because I try to get George to come last year, then they wouldn't do that.
They might now, they're looking,
Well, they let us have the possible, that changed the whole thing. See, if we caught one tonight, had it tomorrow and released it tomorrow evening, is what they asked for. And they might, let us have one this time, if somebody will call them. Because, you know, you go from 50 people in their dogs to 9, you know, people don't want their dog Katrina, coon, hat, whatever you've got put in there, you know. And,
the lady that called last year, she called them the grease pig
yeah,
deal for cruel and inhumane. Or year before last, she called and apologized, so she won't be back. She rode a horse in on the wagon run. There's nothing no crueler than humane than that lady crawling on that horse and riding it 20 miles. And giving it a bale of hay and getting up and doing it.
Okay, Bob.
They want to call you up.
All right. Well stated.
You got a big shadow too.
but they know that the new, board member is the chief of the Cherokee,
Yeah.
Michelle. She's not,
We also need a commissioner on the Heritage Festival Board. Like as president, I think it's election year for our office. That anybody wants to volunteer.
We'll
Keith,
be glad to have you.
Connie Orr, Raymond,
I'll be on it.
we've got to have somebody on.
We got to do this one motion.
Thank you.
First of all, Becky, can we come up with any money? Please. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it's always nice to know that you got some money for your funds.
Well, governing body and administration are well within their budget overall. So, you know, we could adjust perhaps a line item or a couple of line items,
All right,
those two areas.
I'm sorry.
do we have a motion that we go ahead, $2,000? Have a motion
Motion.
for
$2,000.
$2,000 to go to the Heritage Festival. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. Any comment or discussion? All approve? All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, y'all showed up in full force.
They don't want Thursday night.
Y'all welcome to our meeting anytime.
Yeah.
We're at the third.
Hey, thanks a lot, Steve. Good to see you guys.
Hey, Steve,
Yes.
would you start winding half or something where people tell you I'm Greg on the street?
Come on. There's ladies present, right?
Let's keep it nice, civil.
I can't believe any insults you like that.
Let's go. Let's keep it within context here.
There we go.
All right, with that, I'm gonna go to the house just a minute. At this time, do we have any public comment?
Motion to put Connie Orr on the Heritage Festival Board.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Clerk. We have a motion to put Ms. Connie Orr on the Heritage Board.
And I'll back it up.
You got it set first. Do you have a second?
Check.
All right. Any comment? Thank you, Connie. All approved? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Mr. Manager, do we have anybody on public comment?
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, with the change made, we'll have Manager Cable come forward, and we'll go through our discussion items, and I've requested that we do the transfer station purchase first, and with the board's permission, I'd like to go home
Yes, sir.
Sorry it's been this long, Mike.
for just a minute.
I received notification a few days ago from Mr. Cody that they were interested in selling the transfer station. The description that was given was, due to the appraisal being below his expectations, the actual market value, he will sell the current leased area for $450,000. That there would not be any additional buildings or additional land donated. And then some other stipulations following the Wachovia building and the other tax issues. So I have asked for, and for some reason don't have it in my file, but I think I sent out a copy of the current leased area survey that was done by Alan Carver. It's about 4.74 acres of land, which would include our current operations and the impound lot there at the transfer station. If it pleases the board, we would like to get your discussion on this and to see how you would like for us to proceed.
I had a chance to speak to Greg a few minutes this afternoon about this particular purchase. And you mentioned there, Greg, with regard to there being stipulations. And that's one of the things I think the board needs to be aware of. And the connection between that of the purchase for the purchase of the leased area right now and the connection with that of the Wachovia building. Is that how is that relationship, how is it connected with the decision that this board makes to purchase tonight, if the board does that?
Based on the information that I have been presented with, is that proceed with the purchase of the current leased area of the transfer station, and proceed as well with the purchase of what is the sheriff's department down bypass the Wachovia building. Was these were going to be two transactions that would take place relatively, around the same time. And
so what I'm hearing is that this is not just a vote for the one, but the vote.
Yes, sir. And all indications in previous was that it was the county's intention to purchase the Wachovia building regardless. So I think that intent.
Did we not vote on that early? You did my first term. It has been voted on.
That the intent to purchase the Wachovia building has been started already. The other is,
Yeah, but okay, but let me ask a question here that and two about the pots of money.
Yes,
if
sir.
we make a decision for purchase tonight for the transfer station as spelled out in the plat.
yes, sir.
Okay, you did mention that there's a building split in half, or split a portion of it on the property,
Yes, sir.
which would imply that there would be a sharing of the property.
Yes,
of the
sir.
building.
What building is that?
It would be the long building with the cardboard building is under.
That's about to fall out.
Yeah, the one that don't walk in.
No, it drives in.
But looking at that, Keith, is that not where we already got the baler and
Yeah,
the other
it
things?
is.
And we spent some money to have that fixed, did we not?
Yes, sir.
Because it got hit.
It's fixed.
Yeah, that it got
But
fixed.
it's go back.
Roughly, yes, sir. It would cross right there where the gate is and come straight across the road.
Yeah.
That wouldn't, the bailiff would be on our side.
Yes, sir. It should be.
All we'd have to do is put the fence on to
Petition it up on the other side.
the end, right? At the end of the building.
Yes, sir. I mean,
Your recommendation?
well, given the age of the building, if there's ever any situation that would arise on either side, then, the condition of that dry shed is probably not the best in the world. Our recommendation is that at some point, be actively considering erecting a better dry shed on what would then be county property. Because of, the heavy equipment that's being used around and inside of that dry shed. If there were an instance, say, where Graham County's side of that building were to be, impacted or altered and then affected, what's on the other side of the property line, well, that's something that we definitely want to avoid.
I still can't, for myself personally, I can't see that being a deal breaker.
No, I don't think so either. I think, it's nothing that is going to alter how this deal goes through. It's just something that we as county on our property need to be aware of and planning for the future to be able to, to handle those aspects of that shed.
And again, as a reminder to the board, because y'all have been on the same boards with me since we've started this whole process with the transfer station, is that we have been greatly restricted by our ability to raise any funds via grants because we have lease. But now with ownership, we will qualify. I think the white goods grant monies is just one example. Is that not right, Kim? Because you deal a lot with that.
I do that one.
Yeah, and white goods and various other types of grants would qualify for improvement. And plus two, the plans, Billy, I know that you're very aware of, we all went out there one day, is to look at the ability to be able to have the recycling process, not have to shut down the floor and have to clean out the truck in order to be able to do our recycling. So that's another plus to that. And the fact this board has already agreed to purchase the Wachovia building. And then, Greg, another thing that you said to me in the conversation this afternoon was the fact of the different pots of money and being able to qualify the transfer station through a certain type of money. And then the sheriff's department or the Wachovia building would not qualify.
Yes, sir. Depending on the pot of money that we go after, and I'm meeting next week with a representative of USDA, who USDA provides low interest rate, long-term loans that are designed specifically for units of government. And the transfer station would be an ideal scenario to apply for a loan of that nature. I need to be able to get the application submitted before we actually make payment on the transfer station, as far as purchasing it, because if you make the payment prior to it, they're not going to honor it. You need to have that application in place. As far as the Wachovia building goes, the USDA type loan is probably not going to be the best avenue to go to initially, because if USDA does a loan, they come in and whatever is the newest standard of the building code, whether it be ADA compliance or anything like that, that facility has to be at that standard before they'll fund it.
I thought that we got owner's finance.
That's a possibility.
And that may very well be a possibility. It's just that, in a day where we're trying to find, to establish the lowest payment possible at the best interest rate, USDA may not be an option. There's other sources. I'm meeting with another gentleman next week who provides public financing for entities so that we can get a very good idea of, other markets that are out there. So we are actively pursuing the things that we need to do to make sure that financing and things like that, the best interest of the county is going to be, in mind. But we want the leeway to proceed as the board wishes to make this transaction. We all understand, and I want to put this out there, that the offer to purchase $450,000 for the property where the transfer station is. This is a tremendous benefit to the citizens of Graham County. The reason why is that if we were not permitted to purchase this piece of property, and some people may look at almost 5 acres and what that may cost. The cost to build a new transfer station could be upwards of $3 million. If that, at least $3 million, because another location, we may have to purchase, you know, other lands. What may happen, we're still saving the taxpayers of Graham County a substantial amount of money. And
this has to be done.
it has to be
We have
done.
to have garbage pickup, we have to have
Yes.
transportation, we have, I mean, this is not nothing that we say, oh, we don't even,
We don't want to.
that's garbage in the hall, that don't work.
We don't have a choice, and
Right.
this is a positive outcome for the county, and in the long run will save a substantial amount of taxpayer money. So,
And two, excuse me, Greg, another point there is that I want everybody here to realize that about 3 years ago, we would not be having this conversation.
yes, sir.
You understand? Everybody on this board understand what I'm saying? We didn't qualify for anything. We didn't have the fund balance. We find ourselves in a very privileged position right now, and I don't take it lightly. I so appreciate everybody that's worked so hard, and all of our departments, all the taxpayers in this county that have done their part. And Becky, you guided us on a mystery tour, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm really appreciative of this. So, having heard this information, if anybody else has any comment or question, I would ask for a motion, entertain a motion.
I have one other
Yes,
thing
sir.
I want to bring up. You know, within the email that I got, and I think I forwarded that over to you, Commissioner Edwards, we come back to the issue and I guess the discrepancy that's understood about the tax situation in the town of Robbinsville. I have conferred with the Graham County tax assessor, and I was hoping to be able to confer with our attorney tonight, but she is out sick. She told us that she had the flu. Before I was able to give the Board of Commissioners any direction on which way to go with that, I need to confer with the attorney. That should not hold up our ability to proceed with, trying to make this purchase, but I wanted you to be aware that there's that tax issue out there that I need to get counsel.
Now, you're going to have to enlighten me on the tax issue.
Okay. Kim, if I mess this up, help me explain it. Commercial businesses that have offices located within town limits.
I know this one.
Okay, so you're familiar with where I'm going. And equipment that is located within county or the perceived town limits. There was a discovery done by the assessor for the town, the equipment that was located within the town limits that was also picked up by the county. I have talked with the tax assessor, and the tax assessor indicated that the Board of Commissioners, working for the Board of Commissioners, a directive can be given to her to uncode that tax listing from city. And it does not require the burden of the tax to be actually placed back on the commissioners in that case, because you're not over the city, you're over the county. I need to get clarification from council to make sure the ability to proceed with this and knowing, that we're actually trying to make sure that that is taken care of in this process shouldn't hinder us from being able to try and proceed with the sale of this, with the purchase of this piece of property. I just need counsel at my side to make sure that every step of the way involving the tax issue is done correctly, so that the Board of Commissioners, you all are not exposed in any way. So that's where that stands. But to proceed with the ability to go further with the purchase of the transfer station, I don't think it's being a problem, because I think they understand that we are actively working on that.
So are you saying, Greg, that there's a lien against the property?
No, sir, it wouldn't be a lien. It's a discovery. It's a tax bill. The argument can be made that
that property's not in the city limits out there. Now, Bayless, that's not in the city limits.
Thank you, Jack.
And that's, the issue,
There you go. Is that right?
That's right.
So it's a moot issue?
Stanley's the end of it. Stanley, the line right there, Stanley. Venus is not in the city limits.
and
The
that's,
town grocery's not, or the store's not in.
So it's a moot issue then, right, Jack?
Right.
well,
I still need to.
I appreciate, I didn't know you were here, Jackie. I appreciate you being here. Would it be a problem to have the town submit a letter to the tax assessor to say, look, this is not in town limits. We can't accept taxes.
That 21, that tax has nothing to do with that Venus property. That's only them having an office in city limits.
That's right.
Their office, look at the statutes and the law. I mean, you don't have to have a law, you get to do that. That's why your tax assessor picked it up to start with.
Now, what, you and Jackie, I'm sorry.
Your tax assessor put that tax on because they have an office in the city limits.
That's right.
They don't have anything to do with that property out there.
But it has to, I've been told that it has to do with the equipment that is located within town limits.
That equipment can be anywhere.
And I
It's
agree.
where the office is, the equipment's supposed to be taxed, where their office is.
And if the equipment was located at the office, then it would be taxable. Since it isn't, it is not, right, Jack?
No, equipment can be out on the job somewhere.
It's still
It could
taxable.
be in South Carolina.
Town tax, county tax.
But because it's all their offices in town, right?
Right.
It could be, and then the county can tax it too, right?
The county can tax downtown. I reckon.
Yeah. But if he moved his office outside the city limits, then they can't move it to town.
Ask her why she discovered it in the first place, because it's illegal. It's legal. I mean, it's a statute. She shows the statute. She discovered the property. And they asked us to remove it. I mean, I don't know that we can just go ahead and remove taxes unless somebody's liable for them or something.
Well, that's just it. We want to comply with the statute and not expose any town, alderman, or county commission to any liability.
Well, why don't you check into that, because it's not gonna have nothing to do about us buying that building.
That building out there is not in the city limits.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that, but there's a cloud over
Get out.
this discovery that's got to be clarified. And I don't see how it's going to proceed, hinder allowing us to continue to proceed to get the financing and things like that in order to purchase the transfer station, which is what we need a motion for. I just need to consult with council further on that
Board,
part.
let me make this recommendation. I think it's already on everybody's mind. We can go ahead and have a motion with regard to purchase contingent on, can we do that, Ms. Clerk? With regard to this condition, with clarification on the issue of the tax. And Jack, I appreciate your input on that. I'm glad you're sitting back here. But with that, I would surely make, I would really make sure that we had that as a point of the motion with regard to purchase.
Also, if you would entertain, you need to say pending submission of an application to USDA. Because if you say a motion for the purchase prior to submitting the application,
Yeah, that's
you
what you
cannot
said.
submit.
Get it wrong.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get it right. Can you do that for us?
Yes.
And the issue.
Clarifying the tax purposes and pending application, submitting application to USDA
Okay. Is that clarified then to everybody about the motion?
and local government commission.
Okay. Is that fine? It's gonna work?
Well, when we put the application together for USDA, then we'll submit that to USDA, but then we'll also submit it to LGC with their application as well. But we have to have a resolution that we're going to purchase, that we intend to purchase.
Okay, you say resolution, you're talking about motion.
motion.
Just a motion.
Okay, is that clear in everybody's mind?
Did you say so?
There is a motion. Commissioner.
I'll repeat all of that.
Okay, we need a second. We have a second, Commissioner Allen. Any other comment or question? All approved? Yeah. All opposed?
I mean, Sarah walked through here.
It's not done yet.
And the board, based on previous motion, find to proceed on the Wachovia building, as stated.
It's commitment, previous commitment on the part of the board.
Okay. Very well.
Mrs. Clerk, verify that by us.
Yes.
Do we know how long this application stuff will take?
Sorry, sir.
Do we know how long it'll take for us to find out something? Any idea?
On the USDA, it can be a lengthy process to get funded. As we were going to do before, we were under the, understanding that we may have to go ahead and pay for this, and then let the loan turn around and pick it up and basically reimburse the coffers. We just need to get that application submitted.
Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, I was supposed to meet with her today. We had to reschedule a few things. But, so we bumped it to next week. We got everything in line. Once that application is submitted, we're fine to go ahead and fund it. We just need to get that application in prior to.
We have to, the application has to be submitted to the local government commission to be approved by the local government commission board. So, depending on how quickly we can get it in, we may be looking at a couple of months before we get on their agenda.
Really?
That's what I was gonna say, how.
Do we know what that is?
It's like,
Every month, okay.
And I think you have to have it in about a month before their next meeting in order to make it on their agenda.
Do we know anybody on that board real good? I know.
Well, we have some real good advocates down there in Sharon Anderson, and the fellow at the debt section has actually called me a couple of times to say, where are we? I'm ready to.
They're calling
help
us, you guys are pretty good.
And I keep saying, we're ready to get it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, so
think
they're
that
they will
because
help.
of your reputation and your hard work back.
I make a motion that we excuse mine.
I was fixing to ask permission from the board to
And that we look over this and stuff that we have to do tonight, do it and not put the rest of it off. Because one lady's gonna be frozen to that chair if we don't get it. And let's all get out of here because it's bad when I start.
Really bad.
And may I say something first of all, as chair, I'm surrendering that to Billy here in just a minute. Make sure all these things are signed, know that you'll be able to do that and everything else. I want to thank the board for their conduct tonight with regard to the sheriff's department, and I know we've reached out, they're reaching out, so I hope that's going to work out just fine. And we'll leave y'all with it. So we're going to do that. All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Holder, it's yours.
Commissioner Holder, I know that you and I talked about this before, but based on the amount of stuff that we have to cover, I did take the liberty of, reserving this room for tomorrow at 2 o'clock if needed. If you would like to continue this meeting to be able to have full discussion so everybody's not freezing to death. I don't know what's going on with the heat, we've checked it twice, it's just 12 degrees outside. I think. But if that is an option for the board, is to continue this meeting and pick it up at 2 o'clock tomorrow and finish it up.
Well, let's get these people that's here that's in closed session and get out.
I know I'm out of here, but I want you to know that we have action items closed, that's basically it. And I'm taking this pen, but it's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See if I can feel it.
Are you okay with continuing this tomorrow to 2? Just go ahead and go into closed session then to deal with personnel matters.
Yeah.
So,
So you want a motion to go into closed session?
so moved.